Okay, so let me give you a quick run through on this assignment. For getting started, I will just start with a standard geometry and a plane. Remember, no floating planes. I want to see, um, oops, sorry about that. I do want to see some kind of a setting on it, so we'll expand a little bit more on that. You can leave it plain, flat like that, or you can, make it a mountain. It's as you wish. Um, the house can be as simple as a box. You just make a little box here. Oops, sorry about that. It came from Maya now, so now I get confused of the shortcuts. Okay. So I'm pressing middle mouse to zoom in and Control R to rotate. So it could be as simple as, something like this. As I did with the Maya exercise, what I would suggest is let's use the edge faces option so that we can see what's going on here. And let's come over here. That can be maybe one. Actually, we don't need as many. Let's say we have 3. Okay, let's make things easy from the beginning. That way we don't have to struggle much. I'm going to convert. You can either, you have 2 options here. Convert to editable poly directly by right-clicking, convert to editable poly, or adding a modifier. Okay, this one is more destructive because then it's no longer a box, it becomes an editable poly. So it's okay for now, in this case. Control R to rotate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to vertex mode, and I'm going to start just shaping my house. So I'm going to select those 2 points over there on the top and move them up, just to give this kind of shape to the house. If you're doing a flat kind of roof on your house, you can then just duplicate that box, or make the roof separate from another polygon. So I'm going to select these 2 guys, and so that I keep it consistent, I'm going to select these 2 other guys by holding the shift key down, and with the move tool I'm going to kind of put it like a triangular shape. You can also cut here if you want a division. So it depends on the design that you want. If you have questions, you can always ask in the classroom. From here now we are at the roof, right? So we make another box. Let me make it here. I'm gonna do it here first, and I'm gonna move it up. And let's go back. I think obviously I made it a little bit too long, so we can scale that down and move it back. And for now, let's see if we can angle it. So I'm gonna get the rotate tool and kind of angle it in one axis over here so that it kind of goes and sits there. And let's see if we can, well, before we angle it, let's make it long enough to widen it. There we go. And now we angle it. So let's rotate, and I hope you're getting the idea where I'm going with this. Now I'm going to put it down, and there's 1 slab of the roof done. Oh, careful there, because it seems to be needing a little bit more space. So remember, there's always space front, back, and on the sides that the roofs should cover in general. Excellent. So we have that one done there, and let me show you a trick that that might help you. You can make a copy of your in 3D Max of this by holding the rotate tool and the shift key down, and look at what's happening. I'm making the other side of the roof, right? I'm going to cancel that to show you how to make it rotate from the beginning, from the middle. So let's go here on the motion, is it the hierarchy tab, and let's go affect pivot only. Okay, you see that when you do that, you're going to see some weird handles show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the move tool, and we're going to move that pivot point to be over here in the middle. Okay, so that way it rotates. Think of the hinge of a door, how it rotates from the part that is actually attached to the wall, not from the center, right? So I'm gonna just do this here quickly, and I'm doing this on the perspective viewport, but it's better if you do it on any of the other viewports. And move up, kind of look to make sure it's here in the middle. Okay, once I do that, that means that if let me turn this off, if I try to rotate my roof, now it rotates from that corner where I placed the handle rather than from the middle as it was before. So now with the rotation tool selected, I'm going to press the shift key down and rotate. I'm going to say copy over there and say okay, and continue rotating until I have it in place. Okay, so that's, you know, that from there you might need to close that gap, you know, maybe moving them close together. But see how nice it was, because it saved you a long, you know, long move back and forth with having to rotate, you know, and rescale things. So you have the roof pretty much done. You know, just make sure it's kind of like bigger there on the other side. So just relocate, resize it. For the excuse me, for the front, it can be as easy as you know, you can make a porch if you want. That could be a porch. If you wanted to have, you know, a roof, you could always, you know, select the shift key and the move key, and that gives you again the clone options. That way you can have a little bit of a roof, maybe put some pillars there, and maybe, I think if that's the case, we might want to do it a little bit bigger there. I don't know, you're the designer there. Maybe a cylinder. Let's make it here kind of thin and tall, so that it kind of sits over here on the porch. You could clone it again, you know, just put another one over here and say okay to clone it as many times as you need to. You know, kind of like that. Maybe move this one closer to make that an entryway. You can look at the MAAA demo also to have an idea of how to work with, you know, maybe a railing that is a little bit smaller. I'm holding the shift key and cloning that again. You know, it's this is just an example of what you can do. Just holding that and cloning it. Just something simple like that. The door can be, and the windows can be very simple as well. So you could create a box. Let's say the frame is going to be that big, that thick. You make it all the way up. Let's say that this is going to be, let's make a window first. Window, okay. I'm going to go to the Modify tab and add, not there. On the height, I'm going to add, I guess we can add 3 for now. We do not need as many segments there either, so we can just do it this way, 3, 3, and 1, you know, 1, 3, 3. And what I'm going to do is once again right click and convert it to polygon, because that's what we did with the house. Remember, that's the same technique that we just used. So from here what we're going to do is we're going to to come over here and polygon, and we're going to select this center piece, and that's going to be our window frame. Just think about it as the glass or whatever window frame you're going to use. And I'm going to go to the extrude tool, and I'm going to click there and move it. As I move it, I'm pushing it in. You don't have to push it in way too much, just a little bit, as thick as your frame will be, okay? And let's click off the tool and let's take a look at what we just did. You know, it's okay. I will probably move it a little bit further forward, and it's looking like a little tiny window right now. So what you can do is just a simple, fast, effective way to do this is just go to vertex mode again over here and just select all that top row. Remember, make sure that you select all the points on the top, and with the move tool just move it down until you create some kind of like a little frame there. Okay, so make it a little bit thinner. Okay, and do the same for all the other sides. You know, select all these sides and make sure you kind of match the thickness on the one on the top. Do the same for the other side. I'm selecting all the points and making the selection big enough to reach the ones on the back, and kind of match the thickness there. And the same manner, select the ones on the bottom and move them up. There's your window. You said, but that's kind of small. So go editable poly, and remember that you can scale up, you can scale this way, you can scale this way. Okay, you can scale it as you need, and then you can put it with on the scene. Okay, so let me put it over here on the upper level so that you can see it at work. I'm gonna make it kind of stick out as much as you see the other face going through. If you need to edit the thickness, you can do that, because the idea is that from here you can now edit this face and put, let's say, a window glossy look on it. You can always remember move it forward as as you need to edit the thickness by itself. You don't have to extrude again. I think that's a little bit thicker than I wish it would be, so I will probably move it back. Yeah, kind of like that maybe. There you go. It looks better to me that way. On the same manner, you can keep using the shortcut that I just showed you, holding the shift key and moving it up to the side. That way you can make a clone, a copy of it. And for the door, you could use the same technique. You could use, let's cancel that. The move tool, shift key, move it down, and say OK. And for the door, I don't know if you knew this, but you can right click and isolate selection. For the door, you might want to make it a little bit taller. Remember the pivot point. Will be a good moment to edit that pivot point. So let's go to the hierarchy, effect pivot only, and with the move tool select let's probably change it here to the bottom of the door. That way the handle is with the geometry. So let's click effect pivot only and right click and isolate to see our geometry on the scene. I think we went a little bit too far, so I'm just going to scale it down with the scale tool. I'm just going to resize it. Okay, I'm thinking the frames are a little bit thicker than I wish, so I can use the same technique that I just used. Right click, isolate selection, and remember to go to vertex mode and select all that top row of vertices and go down. Make the the edges a little bit thinner. Usually the bottom part of doors, I selected one there that shouldn't have been selected. Usually the bottom part of the doors are thinner, you know, because you don't want to make people trip over a thick frame. So I will do that, and you know, make the other sides a little bit thinner. Okay, and I think that will be a little better. So let's right click and isolate, and now it's a little bit short, so nothing we can't resolve with the scale tool, and just scale, and you know, remember, calculate the size of the people who live in the house. They will probably be somewhere this big, so it looks like a big house, but in reality the scale of the door suggests that that is a small house. Okay, so you just keep adding to this. You know, if you want to put a fireplace, you can put a single, you know, cube there and hollow it. You with the extrude tool as we did here, but you make that go far deep, so to create the hollow area. And then after that we have the UV mapping to do, right? Remember, we need to do the materials, add textures to it, so that the textures are well applied. You want to add modifiers, the mapping modifiers for simple geometry, like let's say you know, the cylinders here and the roof here that will have an even surface. I will use and you know, they look like rectangles and cylinders, so you could use a modifiers UV coordinates Unwrap UV. And here you have some mapping projections that will help you put any textures there that look nice, you know, and then this replicates the shapes you're using. Cylinder, you select a cylinder. If you're using a plane, you know, you can use for the floor, you can use plane. You can use a box for these, because this is kind of like a box that is being stretched out. So you select whatever projection resembles the object that you have. For more complex objects, like the window, I think I added the other one already. For the window, because you will have two materials there. You will have this for the window, and then you have the frame that will be a different color. Then you want to use the UV Unwrap. Okay, and it's right here. So when you apply, go open UV editor, and what you want to do is separate the pieces that you will be UV mapping. For example, this will be glass, right? Like let's say a glass, maybe a, you know, color glass, blue maybe, to simulate it. Go down to the projection area and do a planar map on it. Okay, see which option, X, Y, or Z over here give you the square. This is the one we want, so that resembles what we're seeing on the viewport. That's what you want to achieve over here on the UV editor. So turn that projection off, and with the move tool over here, just grab that and get it out of there. Okay, the reason we get it out of that area is because we're going to arrange everything on that area. Okay, so the rest of what you're seeing there is pretty much the frame. So that all that part could be mapped as maybe a box. Okay, you could remember that we did this with the fireplace. I'm not sure. No, not the fire. That's another class. You can select the pieces. Let me show you how to select different separate pieces. You have that piece over there. You could do a planar map if you want. So you could do another one, and you see that it still resembles the piece that we're seeing, so you can leave it as the default. And then turn the projection off and move it away. Okay. Then you can map the other parts with planar projections if you want it. Planar, X, Y, or Z. I think Y might work. So let's try Y. No, why is a little thin line? That's not what we want. Let me see. If it's just a thin line when we let go, it's not what we want. Yes, that's not what we want. Let's try planar again and X. How about Z? Z gives us a fairly decent one. So if we hit fit, sometimes it does it, but no, it didn't. So let's go projection and turn it off. Go here. So we have this area on the top map. It's just a little thicker than I wish it was. So I could just always rescale it. So get it like this to resemble more what it looks like. That way the texture I apply doesn't get distorted. So you continue doing that for all the parts and lay them out, you know, this side, the bottom side, the other side, the back side. The back side you could even delete if you wanted to, because it's extra polygons that are there and are not needed. So once you finish, right, let's say that you did finish, let's just grab this over here. You're going to remember to put everything on that default area there with the checkers. So select all of it and make sure you scale it in there, make it fit. Watch the proportions so you don't distort them too much. And if it bothers you a little bit, just remember to turn this off. I'm sorry. And then make sure everything is inside that area. I see that there's a little point there that was not. So once you finish, once you apply your material, it's going to go to that default area. So then you can create a texture map. Remember that you can take this and render your UV template. Say render UV template. And you can from here take this into Photoshop and paint over here in this area the blue for the window, and on the other areas you can paint brown, let's say for wood, you know, or you take a wood texture and put it there. And then when you bring that back and map it to the diffuse attribute of your material, then it's gonna look like you have a blue window and you know, a wood frame on the door. Okay, so that's kind of like what you did with, oh, you did it with the Mudbox guy, right? With the default character that we have been using in the class. You did that last week. You exported the template and you brought it back to the color. So it's the same concept that we applied already. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You know, for anything else that might need UV mapping, remember you can use the Unwrap for complex, or the UVW map for geometry that is close to basic primitives. Once you finish, you know, load your materials and you know, make it look nice, not just like this, like with the default colors, because that's not what we want. Just add lights, right? We already talked about lights last week, so add your light and make sure that the shadows are well defined, like that you see the shadows on the render. Okay. You know, if you render here, you see the shadows here, but you do not see them on the renders because the lights are not set up. So just like we did last week, put your shadows, make sure that they resemble the time of day that you want. Let's avoid having floating planes, please. You know, I don't want to see things like this, you know, floating environments. Make sure that you put, you know, that you try to find an angle that's interesting, maybe something like this, like as if we were in the house or looking at it from the front. And then make sure that the edges don't show. See how we see here that, you know, the plane ended there. So if that's the case, what you can do is simply, let me select it where I'm not there. So if that's the case, if, you know, just try extending your plane. You know, take the scale tool and just extend it so that it goes beyond the scope of the camera. That way we don't see that edge over there. Okay. For the background, you can use the same technique that we used last week. You can change the background color, or you can just get you know, a plane like this one, and position it on the back with a texture of the sky or a mountain or something that you would like to make. So I'm just gonna clone this plane here, you know, say okay. Remember the trick is rotate tool and shift, and you could, you know, place a map on that plane now of maybe clouds, maybe a mountain, you know, anything that you would like to show. And as you zoom in the camera, you're gonna see that it's gonna show that environment on the back, you know, much nicer than just putting the blue color of the sky, which is also an option, because this is not this exercise is not too complicated, you know, it doesn't have to be too developed. But if you want to get a little bit more creative, you can add a texture image to that background plane. Okay, so get three renders and discuss you know, what you wanted to achieve, you know, how you feel about the results, and who could live there and all that stuff. Okay, so I look forward to seeing your works next. Oh, I did forget the doorknob. The doorknob can, you know, always make sure that you have some sort of doorknob there, because it might look odd. So a simple doorknob could be a cylinder, you know. I'm gonna make it really big so that you understand what I'm doing there. And maybe a sphere, and maybe, you know, I'm gonna intersect them so that, and you might want to do this on the top view probably, so that to make sure they align. And then you can maybe do that. You see, they don't align. So always check from different angles. I like to overlap them like that, and then kind of use it as reference as I go on the scene there. And the top view will be a little bit more efficient. So then, you know, bring it up, and then you can get these two guys and you know, rotate them, scale them, and then put them in place where they should go. This is a very simplistic version for it. You know, you can do your own, a little bit more complex. Make sure that proportions are right, because we don't want a gigantic doorknob in a tiny door, right? And for this, you can just leave it at, you know, a simple shiny bright color like metal, or if you want it to be like bronze, make it brown and put the specular kind of high. So just make sure it's sitting on it, not floating over, you know, that intersects somehow. You know, from here you can, you know, do things to the handle if you want, you know, make it a little bit more like that. You know, you can get creative there. Okay, and that's it. It's bugging me that the frames here are very thick and here is very thin, so because it doesn't kind of look uniform. So just watch for that. And that's it. Just get 3 renders. Once you finish the texturing and the lighting with shadows, render and save it. You guys already know how to save it over here. And just get a different angle. Make sure we don't see the back, because if we see the back, then you might need to change to a different one. And render and render. Okay, so watch for the background. If you need to extend the floor plane, then extend it. You know, that's a good solution. For the floor, you can use you know, images like grass, gravel, asphalt. If you want to do it, make it like a road. Just use your imagination there. You know, try to make it interesting. Sand, even, you know, people who live on the beach might like the sand. So think of ideas like that. Okay, Try to use the also the specular as we did previously, and the bump map attributes, because that adds beauty to your scene. Specular map actually was introduced to me as a very important asset on a production by a former DreamWorks animator. He said, specular, things when they're shiny, they're brand new on the software, they look kind of fake because they look so bright and so clean, polished. If you do a simple noise map on the material where you're applying, it will add variations to that specular highlight. It will make the object look a little bit more used, more have aged a little bit. And I didn't think of that. I've been told that in college many times, but I never realized until I heard it from him how important it is, and what a nice effect you can achieve. So you might want to try that out. The default noise that the software brings in, you can try that out too. And it just adds beauty and detail. In the gaming industry, detail with texture on low polygon geometry like this one is what makes the scene a little bit more realistic, because you map a realistic texture to the scene, and then it starts looking like a realistic model. Okay, so I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing your work next, how you apply this.